Hello Internet, welcome back to Thrums to Twilight, the channel where I, Vincent, talk to you, the digital abyss, about books, movies, music that I find interesting, that I enjoy, or a combination of the two. I have a kind of longer, structured video about a book coming out on Friday, so this is going to be a much more kind of off-the-cuff, unstructured video, hopefully a little shorter, about Ari Aster's new film, Eddington. Now, Ari Aster, if you don't know, although you probably do if you're watching this video, he made his name as a very innovative director of horror films. His first full-length film, Hereditary, is probably still the most influential horror film of the past decade. I recently saw Bring Her Back, and that, for example, was obviously in the shadow of Hereditary. Then Midsummer is also an excellent film. I like it at least as much as I like Hereditary, and both of these films have this kind of sense of doom and of things being predetermined. Um, they have a kind of claustrophobic nature to them. They're very visually beautiful, really genuinely disturbing films, both of them. His third film, Beau is Afraid, was like a 3 hour long, surreal kind of journey. And we don't have time to go into that film. Maybe I'll make another video about it at some point. But for me, it was like a really mixed bag. I absolutely loved the beginning. There's a section in the middle where Beau is kind of watching a play, and then he goes into the play and he lives an entire life in the middle of the film, which I also thought was just absolutely stunning and painful and beautiful. But I was less enthusiastic about the film as a whole. And that brings us to Eddington, which is Aster's 2025 film starring Joaquin Phoenix with supporting roles from, amongst others, Pedro Pascal and Emma Stone. I may not have mentioned this before, but I absolutely love Emma Stone. I think she's amazing. I'm obviously not in a minority, but I didn't know she was in the film, so I was super excited to see her. And she was great, although her role and Pascal's role are much smaller compared to Phoenix's role. I'm going to say now that if I'm going to discuss anything interesting about this film, I can't really be concerned about spoilers. So if you're worried about spoilers, you shouldn't watch this video. I won't kind of be describing the whole narrative of the film, but part of what's interesting about this film is the way that it develops stylistically as it goes on. And I feel like if you are planning to see it soon, it's better to go into it not knowing about this. Okay, so now that you're suitably warned, I will say that I think the promotional presentation of this film as a kind of Western is very misleading. It definitely has elements of the Western in it, both in the kind of beginning of the story, the location, and the kind of escalation into extreme violence towards the end, which is maybe like referencing Sam Peckinpah in some ways and some other like more gratuitous or more violent westerns. But it's really referencing the western genre as much as it's referencing several other genres. It's kind of like a postmodern film where it's operating outside of genres or just like playing with genre conventions. It's not doing it as wildly as Beau is Afraid, but it's not kind of within these recognizable genre conventions that you see in Aster's first two films. Like, this is not a western in the way that those films were horror films. So I need to talk a little bit about the narrative of this film. Joaquin Phoenix, he's playing a sheriff, and this is within the first weeks of the COVID lockdown or the COVID mandates, and he is reacting to the mandates. He doesn't think that people should be mandated to wear masks when they go into shops, into stores, and he also has a kind of long running feud with the mayor of the town, played by Pedro Pascal, because Phoenix's wife's mother has accused Pedro Pascal of assaulting Emma Stone's character when they were teenagers, something that he denies. So Phoenix decides that he's going to run for mayor, and a lot of the film is about a man who knows very little about politics trying to involve himself in politics. And the story of the film basically is about the kind of developing political psychosis of the United States of America from the time of COVID and up until today, and the kind of digital conspiracy theory rabbit hole that many apparently stable people went down. You could almost say that this film is like a cinematic adaptation of Naomi Klein's book Doppelganger, which is about how the internet kind of colonized real life and the differences between reality and fiction and conspiracy theory kind of got erased in the post-COVID world. Parts of this film are really funny. Like, I found the stuff about kind of young people, young white people trying to situate themselves within Black Lives Matter and the George Floyd protests and the internet developments around that to be like genuinely amusing satire. You have this young boy who is trying to date this girl who's kind of out of his league. So he's trying to convince her that she should be interested in him by becoming an activist, and watching him like learn these buzzwords and then regurgitate them at home to his kind of Republican family who have a cabinet full of rifles. I found that really amusing in a quite bleak fashion, in the same way as watching Joaquin Phoenix's character kind of piece together a political program from Bitcoin, anti-communism, anti-authoritarianism, and then accusations of sexual assault was like really quite a biting satire of the developments within political discourse in recent times. In the background of all of this, you have like the real issue, which is that the land around this town is being sold out from under them to a data center that is going to basically cause a drought within the local community. And all of this could be a serious political platform, but Phoenix's character kind of just makes a huge mess of trying to smear his opponent instead. Meanwhile, Emma Stone's character is an investigation of how vulnerable people who've been subjected to traumatic experiences can easily fall down the rabbit hole of something like Pizzagate or equivalent politicized conspiracy theories around genuine incidents of abuse. Now, tonally, this film is really weird because at the beginning, it might remind you of something like Fargo or some of the Coen brothers' darker films, or also Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, if you've ever seen that film. It has this kind of like slightly playful but slightly dark tone. But then as America goes further down the rabbit hole, the tone of the film also begins to shift. And what happens within the second half, or maybe the last third of the film, is that the world of the film becomes the world of the right-wing conspiracy theorists' paranoia, where Antifa is like a genuine terrorist organization, where there's guns everywhere, where everyone's paranoid, you can't trust anybody. The underlying racism of white America becomes clearer. Simultaneously, people are becoming ill. And in the background, the venture capitalists and tech oligarchs are just still buying up the land. Now, on paper, this is brilliant, like holding a mirror up to the kind of distorted version of America that the internet has presented us. Makes perfect sense. The problem that I have with this film, though, is that the last part of the film, which follows Joaquin Phoenix's character, he has become so unlikable, like such a pathetic villain, that I'm not invested in anything that he's doing at the end of the film. And the characters that I did care about, like his deputy who's black and his wife who's joined this cult, they kind of disappear, and all of the stakes kind of disappear, and it just turns into a kind of like psychosis in the same sort of way as Beau is Afraid, and everything escalates. And although that's intellectually interesting, it was emotionally quite boring. What I will say is that I think that Ari Aster came out of the gate so accomplished as a filmmaker that it's like, where would he go? You know, most filmmakers would take years to become as good as he was with his first feature film. And he made two incredible films right out of the gate, and then he made this completely sort of wild and unrestrained third film, which was kind of shocking and confusing. And then I feel like with Eddington, he's like trying to find his mature style. Like he stopped trying to make films within a recognizable genre, and he's trying to kind of create his own voice within cinema. I think Aster is now like trying to be somebody whose name will become an adjective in the way that we talk about Lynchian, or like we talk about Hitchcock or Lars von Trier. He wants to be a filmmaker making films within that strata, and he hasn't really quite nailed it yet. Like he doesn't know exactly how to do it. It's kind of watching somebody develop their voice. So as much as I didn't love this film, although it made me laugh out loud several times, at the end of it I was ambivalent. I kind of feel like as long as Asta keeps going with what he's doing, in the end, we're all going to feel privileged that we got to watch this artistic style in development. And my prediction is that it's not going to be the next movie, but it'll be the one after that, where he will make, you know, the film that everybody's waiting for him to make. Okay, that's my take on Eddington, Ari Aster's 2025 movie. Uh, have you seen it? What did you think about it? What are your opinions on him as a filmmaker? I'd love to hear from you if you would like to discuss it. And as always, thanks for listening, and maybe I'll see you again.